Okay.
All right, today is chapter 11 and Selina is leading, so take it away.
All righty. More new friends. A pretty innocuous title for a chapter that I found extremely challenging. It's been bugging me for weeks now. Okay, first couple questions. We'll start off with the nicey stuff and get into the other stuff. How does it feel, Aphraar, to be swooped down upon and swallowed up by such a family circle without any consent or permission? I thought that was kind of interesting that was the first word out of somebody's mouth. I like that. So are you okay with God picking your friends for you? Oh, okay, Lisa.
So my first response to that question was, wow, I didn't even think of it as God choosing my friends or Aphraar's friends, you know?
Yeah.
And the next thought I had was, well, isn't everybody in the spirit world your friend once you've all purified yourselves? Like when you're in Aphraar's level of development, everybody becomes your family, actually, your brothers and sisters in your family. So I wasn't feeling like, oh, God's forcing me to have certain friends. So
yeah, I think in the next, it's like it's like a sacred, they call them sacred relationships. So that's where it got to me. Like we're your family, like we were all mentored by the same people. So that means we all have this special bond between us. So that makes us friends and family. So I think it is more of a special relationship than just everybody that you meet, like sort of generic kind of a thing. Yeah, but they're not, it just kind of stimulated some of that teenage feeling in me of, what? It's like, I want to pick friends with my own friends, even if they're bad, no matter what my mom and dad say. Not that I ever did that. Yeah. Anybody else? Oh, Virginia. Go ahead, Virginia.
I agree with Lisa and with yourself as well, because that is the first response is what I can't do that myself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I thought about it, yes, I agree with what Lisa's saying that, you know, it's one big happy family, but God knows me better than I know myself. I know that for sure. And so I feel like God would be choosing people that have the same interests and similar desires that I do. And that's how those special friendships would come about. And that's where the choosing comes in, is to bring those souls together.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's not that I don't think it's wonderful. I just kind of
no, but at first it sounds like, what?
It mostly brought up a lot of addictive feelings for me. So that's why I thought it was interesting. Okay, Judith?
Well, I did have bad friends as a teenager, so I can vouch for that. But what I was thinking was, I guess when we become our real selves, we're going to attract the right people in our lives through God's laws. Mm. And that's where those really extra special people, we simply attract them once we move through all our injuries.
Yeah.
So.
I think she actually says, "Oh, aren't you surprised? Like, we're your new friends. Hi." Like, like automatically, like, we're your new friends. So it wasn't even like he knew he was attracting them; they just appeared. And I guess that's an attraction, and just introduce themselves as your new friends that you get to have forever. Kind of feeling was what it felt like. Yeah, to me.
And he was almost, why me? You know.
Yeah. I think it almost seemed like it kind of took him by surprise a little bit, didn't it? Yeah. Okay, Michael.
Weren't they all talking with Mayanine? And he said, "I'm going to go meet Aphraar," and so they said, "Oh, we want to come too." So they're kind of in the same circle in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like an automatic family friendship. Yeah, it's automatic. Yeah. Okay, so we'll probably go on to the next one. Neely, do you have anything on that one? No. We are no longer strangers and foreigners to each other, not even fellow citizens, but members of the same family. We are waiting for your coming to make our joy complete. We did not know you, but we know you now. And in that knowledge, we have each discovered that heaven had a certain sweetness we had not tasted before. So I love that. So what a greeting. It makes me long for such friendships. So how does this greeting make you feel about your earthly friendships? Any similarities? Okay, Judith?
Well, my earthly friendships are not like that. I always feel like, people, they kind of judge you and we judge each other. But years ago, I did have kind of this past life experience back in the early 90s. And it was like with a Native American person. And the one thing that he said that really stuck in my mind was they felt like anytime a new person came into their realm or their tribe, it was like a new way of looking at themselves.
Oh, that's nice. I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Oh, that's really nice. Michael?
For me, I don't have the same feeling about my earthly friends. Because I feel like I have to measure up, or I have to check them out, or there's so much more involved. Do we have the time to get to spend to each other? And it's more difficult.
Yeah.
What this triggers for me though is I think of the immigration problem that the country and politics that we have, and how a lot of people are very nationalistic about our boundaries, and how in heaven Jesus has said that when they can feel when somebody new comes into their sphere. And so I think wouldn't it maybe ideally will become my ideal for immigration is every person is welcome and valued and cherished and felt when they come into the country. And if that's the way God is, then we're fighting over the wrong things.
Yeah.
But it'd be so hard to convince people and such a long distance to get there. So I think of our nation this way. How nice to cherish everybody that, they're not a burden on us. They're a valuable addition and member of the family.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, for me, it kind of brings up a little bit of addiction in terms of, oh, it's effortless. God's just going to do it for me. That's how I want my friendships to be, effortless, right? Like they seem too much work here. I would like them to be effortless, and maybe they should be effortless if they were good, true friendships. Neela? Oh, did you have your hand up? Do you want to talk?
Yeah. Because I don't have the hand icon, so.
I know.
Please.
Yeah.
So for myself, friends were my safety. So I have a lot of addictive emotions towards friends because that was my only safety. School was my only safety. The only way I escaped violence was when I was not at home. Outside of home was safe. And friends were my safety. And I reached out to quite a few of my high school friends to thank them for saying, thank you. You have no idea how much your friendship meant to me, because it was hell. So I'm kind of questioning. So if I'm to question any addiction has to be in my friendships. I come to the point where I let my friends pick me. So I don't pick friends. I let them pick me as friends, and then I will reciprocate. But if I'm to work with addictions and relationship, friendship is where I should go for it. I do sometimes imagine, one of my favorite imagination when I'm with all of our friends now is to go, what are we going to be like when we get to higher spheres? The same friends we have now as we progress. What are we going to be like? What's your personality going to be like in a higher sphere compared to now? And how much fun are we going to have? Looking back at ourselves now, going, oh my God, do you remember when? And the struggles we had, and turns out, look at your real nature. I don't know. I always imagine what it would look like.
Yeah. Particularly friends like that you've had, a more spiritual nature. Yeah. On earth. Yeah.
The friends I have.
There's the only friends you have. Yeah, I know. That's the thing.
I'm an introvert and work with people, so I am very picky with who I spend my energy with because I only have so much.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I can't not speak like this. So
exactly. It's too much work. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. Mediumship yesterday. Yes. Enrique was saying the same thing. It's just too much. It's just so nice to be around divine truth people because you don't have to watch what you say and it's not so much work. Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Okay. Welcome. Anybody else? No? So will a record of such a communion be written for you, my brother, my sister, when your feet shall reach those hallowed precincts, when you shall be ready to bid your final farewell to the last influences of the earth, when by the gate you are able to meet the cherished kindred of your soul and receive their welcome home. There are still numbers of wayward, prodigal, self-willed, and rebellious children who, taking advantage of their father's great loving kindness and tender mercy, have wandered into forbidden and defiant associations. Are any of your human relationships like this, forbidden and defiant? Anybody? I just wonder what that's like because I've never done that. So what does that feel like to have a relationship just because you just know it's going to piss everybody off, you know? Just wonder about that. Lisa?
So in 5th grade, I had a friend who was the leader of the two of us, and I really admired her. She was really strong and an amazing writer. She wrote like the class play, and she was that kind of person that was cool.
Mhm.
She had us doing all sorts of things. We put peanut butter under car door handles. We threw ice cubes at the nuns because there was a Catholic school right near her house, and they'd walk by. I mean, I did all kinds of bad things with her. And so, yeah, that reminds me of my rebelliousness with her. Of course, once we got to 6th grade in a new school, she stopped talking to me because I was no longer cool. And that was very hurtful and
Oh,
painful.
yeah. So it
But,
doesn't
yeah.
have much depth, that kind of friendship. Yeah, it won't last. Yeah. Michaela?
Hi. I kind of feel like the relationship that I'm having with my partner at the moment is sort of like that. Like he's really called me out on a bunch of addictions, and I find whenever I want to go towards him, I still want to engage my addiction. So I kind of feel like I just need to not spend any time with him. And so it's this feeling of like defiance, like just kind of almost just wanting to force him to do it my way. And then recognizing that like it should be forbidden. Like I shouldn't actually go in there and just want to dump all over him. And I'm finding it really confronting to find a loving place within this dynamic.
So you want to explore your defiance with this guy. Like that's what you want to do?
I can't help it. I can't help it. I'm so hooked into my addictions with him.
Wow.
And now he's saying no, that it's really intense. It's almost like I don't even know how to be around him and not be in addiction. It's like maybe I should just hang out with him and say nothing.
Wow, that's interesting. So do you think that this is productive for you, like your process?
Well, at the moment it's really painful, and I think there's probably a fair bit of unloving stuff going on from his direction as well. But the more that I can like stop myself from going into the dynamic and just sit with how I'm feeling, I feel like there's huge potential in it. Yeah. It's just not wanting to feel it,
Yeah, and it's so easy to dive into those types of relationships. I think to dive into those emotions, or project.
Oh
them
yeah,
out.
it's right there.
Yeah, exactly. Easy.
Yeah. So easy,
yeah.
not so easy to choose to feel it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so good. And this, I didn't understand. Oh, does anybody else have anything to say? Sorry, Kayla, you done? Anybody
I'm
else?
done. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody know what this means, the way we're taking advantage of God's kindness? How are they doing that? These people that are being defiant, how are they, Michael?
I think I know this one well. I think that Earth life, there's a lot of mercy in it, and we're given time to learn things. And I think we have time to repent and remorse and change the course of our lives. And if we were in the spirit world, I think that if I did a really big sin, I'd probably turn 2 shades darker and drop down a sphere, you know, like immediately.
Mhm.
But here we can still hang out, and there's an emotional cost, a cost to my soul, but the punishment doesn't seem to be as immediate as I imagine it to be in the
Oh,
spirit world.
okay.
So
Yeah.
that's how I answered this question.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I kind of thought it was like you're kind of offered a better way. Like what's good is more obvious to you when you're there. Like God lets you see what you can have, but you still choose the other thing. Maybe. Virginia?
I kind of, well, I agree that this is a lot. I see this a lot on Earth, and even with divine truth, right? Because you learn about what sin is, you start learning about what you need to do and not to do, and then sometimes we still choose to not, and you hope that there's mercy for you later.
Yeah.
That God will be merciful.
Yeah.
So I feel like the area where you're kind of negotiating and you're not really, you know what you should be doing, but you're not really doing it all the time yet. That's where I feel that I am.
Yeah.
I guess I'm the wayward child, I guess.
Yeah. But there's more leniency for that here than maybe in the spirit world.
Because that
Yeah.
immediate
Compensation for
the
it. Or,
word punishment always comes to
yeah.
mind. You know,
Compensation.
God is not punishing, but the effects from
Mhm.
the actions that I take don't always seem so immediate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even
As
though
they
on my
would there.
soul they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Oh, and then there's so many different topics in this chapter. Friendship, now angels. Like he really, when he does his musings, I find there's always a lot, when he starts to have his visions and his musings. Angels. I only ask, did an angel ever come back to earth with a commission from the beyond? Answer that. If so, the thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. If you answer that you don't believe an angel ever did return, then I pray you to be honest and cease to prate about a resurrection. Better far to be an avowed agnostic than a willfully blind hypocrite. Strong words. So he seems to be admonishing the people for claiming faith in the resurrection, but not believing in angels. Like, how could you believe in that and not in angels? Like, it's like the same thing. And he gives examples of them visiting us and says that can still happen even today. And why don't we believe that? So does anybody here believe angels help us on earth in physical form? And if you do believe that, what's why? Personal experience based on faith, or like I said, wishful thinking because it just sounds really good. Intellectual maybe understanding, or does anybody have a real pure emotional faith that there are angels that come here in form, in a incarnate form? Lisa?
I had a time when I was going through a lot of emotion, one of many times, and I was driving my grandparents' hand-me-down car that was this huge yank tank down a highway going about 50 an hour. And suddenly this squirrel like darts right in front of me under my tires. And so I swerve and like end up losing control of the car and going towards the gutter. And just as I'm pushing on this gas pedal to try to slow down this huge yank tank, I hit a fire hydrant and the water comes just like gushing out, which is just like perfect example of my emotional experience at that time. I was so shaken up. I got out of the car and immediately there was this car behind me and this man looked at me with this he just came out of nowhere. Like I didn't even see the car pull up, or maybe I was just so out of it. But I've often looked back at that time. He helped me. He said, "Are you okay?" And he was ready to give me any assistance I needed. I was just shooken up. And I don't know, I have this feeling that it was like a guardian or something. I don't know why that's different than other times in my life when helps come, but it just keeps standing out in my heart and mind as this might have been somebody, one of my guides taking on a human form in that moment. And then it was just like the car just disappeared once they could tell I was okay. It was like they just emotionally were present with me in that kind of trauma, in that experience. So I really do feel it's possible. And I
Yeah.
think that that might have happened to many of us more times than we realize.
Maybe, yeah.
For sure. I can't
Yeah.
prove it, but it
Maybe
feels like it was different feeling in that moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anybody else? Any experiences? Share, Mila?
When I was growing up, my mother wouldn't spend money. And so I would read, like there were no books. We had no books. So I would read newspaper wrappings. Back then you wrapped everything in newspaper, like groceries, everything. So I would
Oh,
read
wow.
wrappings so that I had something to read. I would read textbooks the day I got them and then got punished for it because I read it too fast. But I would just read everything. And so I must be around 12. We were coming out of a dental appointment in Galang, in Malaysia. And this tiny little Indian woman came out of nowhere and said to my mother, "Do you know the building next door is something called library and that you can borrow books for free?" I want to find that angel. Someday I want to find that angel
Yeah.
because it was
Wow.
free, but it was books, and I never looked back. That was it. From that point on, I had,
Yeah.
I had
No motivation or stimulation or anybody talked to her. She just came forth and just said it.
Yep.
Just said that sentence. Yeah.
Yeah, but the way she said it, the way she was so
Yeah.
demure,
Wow.
is how you get under my mother's skin. The way
Yeah.
you have to be a certain way in order to get into her defenses. But basically, she introduced the word library, and my life changed. That was it. You couldn't stop me.
So that was probably pretty significant too, even just the fact that your mother was influenced by her.
Yeah.
Enough to allow you to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she must have somehow got to her arrogance.
Well, that's what
somehow.
I'm saying. It was an angel.
Yeah, like she knew how to approach her.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
appealed to her sense of, so she could feel good about doing that for you. Good
Exactly.
about herself. So she must, that gave her that feeling.
And at that
Wow.
time, I was being, a lot of violence, sexual abuse was going on. But in the midst of it all, I find a library. I find books. I start to find ability to have my own agency of some kind.
Yeah.
So it really, like, it really saved my soul. So yeah, that was an angel.
Yeah, I had similar experience with books. I know what you mean. Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. That's so neat. I've never had a personal experience, but I have a friend, and when she was a teenager, like she was just with her friends after school, I think walking home or something, and a car came full on, like speeding, and hit her. But she said, but it didn't actually hit me. She said, it's like I got scooped up right over the car and I hit the ground so hard that I skid across the ground and my pants melted into my jeans, or the synthetic fibers in my pants melted, actually skidding, and I was uninjured.
Wow.
She had no other explanation than she got lifted up.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
What I would really like to experience is to be able to meet an angel that is manifesting in a celestial sphere, but to know that that's when that is happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To meet somebody and then go, hey, wait a minute. I have a funny feeling about you. You're not human.
Yeah. Like,
That'd be great.
there's an Irish author. She writes, one of her books is Angels in My Hair. She's a medium, and it's pretty interesting what she has to say about spirits coming to visit her.
Okay.
Like advanced spirits, if anybody's interested. It was an interesting book. Okay, here we go. Okay. Just a sec here. So Aphraar's doubt about God. Revelation has assumed authority, and reason henceforth occupies a subordinate position. Grasp that interpretation and accustom yourself to obey the higher power. Then there will be no further room to doubt. I believe that in the interpretation of the following story and the analogy Aphraar comes to the conclusion with, he's obeying the advice of Walumali in chapter 8, as indicated in the above quote. I realized today that I had been in a meltdown about this story for weeks, not because of the story, which was what I thought was I was having a meltdown about, but because I can't support or defend the conclusions that Aphraar came to in order to clear his doubts about God. This makes me angry. My reasoning process brought me to a different place, and as much as I want to be in agreement, I can't. I came to divine truth because of these books, and the gift Aphraar gave me changed my life. I am in disagreement with my friend, and I hate that. This makes me mad. So far, in spite of all that has been said to me, this is Aphraar. So far, in spite of all that had been said to me, there had been a lingering doubt, a failure to understand the drastic, almost vindictive prohibition with which any attempt to pass the gate was defended. Already several times had I been reminded that there shall in no wise enter into anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination or maketh a lie. Whenever I had heard it, it had seemed to me like an unnecessary going out to find some cause of objection which did not really exist, but in some curious and not very probable circumstances might come into existence. And the idea of it gave me a certain feeling of injustice I vainly tried to get rid of. It recalled the uncontrollable feeling of aversion I had always felt towards God when I had read that command which Samuel gave to Saul. Go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. Where was the justice of such a command that was reconcilable with everlasting loving kindness? So Aphraar isn't the only one that has trouble with this story. Based on my research, it is the most contentious story in the Bible because it depicts God as commanding genocide without mercy. Like in some stories, he says, well, you can warn them. And then if they don't succumb, then you can kill them. Right? There's stories like that. But this one was just, they got to be killed, they're bad. There were some that believed that the Amalekites, sorry, I lost my spot. I'm reading it off my phone.
You want me to read it?
Sorry. There are some that believe that the Amalekites could change into animals at will, hence the command to kill all of the tribe's livestock. In fact, the head soldier guy that went to kill them all saved the king of the Amalekites and some of the best livestock. And King Saul had to personally go and kill the king and the livestock himself in order to fulfill God's commandment. Like they were serious. They did not like these guys. They were also depicted as being antagonistic to the Jews for many years for no reason. Aphraar must have believed the story about God's command to kill these undesirable people. He feels the same vindictiveness in this story is present in denying him access to the gate. I appreciate his honesty about his feelings about God. Like, he uses strong words, vindictive and aversion. Those are strong words. Have you ever felt God is vindictive? Anybody? Mila? Nodding your head.
We have kind of it's like a cultural conversation. It's like a cultural feeling.
Oh yeah.
That God is punishing us. God is punishing the innocent people that were being unfairly punished or prosecuted, and that because we believe whatever is happening is because God wants it to happen, or God is allowing it, or God is encouraging it. So whatever happened, instead of feeling about the people that are doing it to us, we are mad at the fate that God is the one doing this to us. So we have this feeling that God is vindictive. It's not just my feeling, it's kind of like a cultural story. And that currently, as I'm processing my traumas, whenever I connect to the child's hurt, the child is feeling that feeling again. God, how could you do this to me? You know, that God is vindictive. So I'm feeling this kind of like on a daily basis right now.
Okay, a good answer. Yeah. Anybody else? Oh, okay. Lisa?
Yeah, when I first started reciting the Lord's Prayer, the one that Jesus gave in the first century, I would try to greet Mother and Father God in the morning, and like I could barely even talk to the mother because I was so afraid she was going to hit me, and that I was going to be bad. So like I had all those emotions but at least eventually I just started talking to her and saying, I'm scared of you. Like, I'm scared you're going to do this to me. And that helped me work through some of the emotions, which I then was able to realize, oh, that's my mom from Earth. Maybe you're different. And then I started kind of inquiring because I just feel like we carry our parental injuries and just automatically transpose it onto God, put those same injuries. So that process has been really revelatory for me, to let myself first feel enough of the false beliefs about God, my mommy God, and then get to a point where I was like, well, maybe she's different. Like, will you show me what you're like? And like, just open a little emotionally and then receive an emotion like, oh, wow, you feel really different. But it's been a trust building process for sure. So yeah, I definitely have had a lot of feelings that I'm being punished. I'm going to be punished. Like even when there's thunder and lightning storms, I feel like, oh no, that it's going to get me. It's going to strike me down. I'm going to be punished. I'm bad. So it's weird. Just childhood stuff, I guess.
Yeah. 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 Thanks, Lisa. Okay, I guess it goes this way. Michael?
I don't feel that God is vindictive. I don't think I ever felt that. And I think I've always believed that men, strong-minded, misdirected men have written these things. And so I've always been skeptical. And I think that affects my belief in whether angels can manifest. For the same reason, I don't believe that an angel, I guess they can, but I never, it doesn't make, you kind of know what I'm saying? It seemed like a stretch that an angel could take human form, kind of answering the previous question. So I have some doubt about the Bible, and it affects things which seem out of the ordinary. So.
Yeah. Judith?
I kind of feel, I know, like when I first saw this question, I was like, of course God's not vindictive, but I kind of feel like I almost want God to be, or I kind of feel in certain circumstances, God would be vindictive, like with really bad people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want him to be, like, what is he going to do with a Hitler or a Donald Trump, and I kind of feel that that's almost a flaw in myself. And I don't know how to address it, but I guess it would just be moving through the anger that I have towards those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of what the question brought up for me. Because if I don't think God is vindictive, but if I'm vindictive, how can I say God isn't if I'm that way myself?
Yeah, if that feels like a good thing to you to be vindictive towards people that deserve it.
Right.
Then God should do it too. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been working around some law of attraction stuff that, I don't know, vindictive might be a bit of a strong word, but just the unfairness of it so often, trying to feel that better. It's not easy. Yeah. Virginia?
I really don't want to believe this story at all.
Me neither.
I don't want to believe that God would ask for this or would give this kind of command at all. And so I don't know what's happening here, but what I felt about it when I heard this story is that when a soul has this desire to want to be in the kingdom of heaven and to heal, that God will be this way as far as your addictions and any unloving feelings that you have, that has to be gone the way the Amalek were, attacked
Yeah.
and slaughtered, that's the way God feels about those things before you are going to be going into the kingdom of heaven. And that's the way I saw it. I don't know whether this story is actually true or not, or that was God giving this command, but I just can't believe that.
No, me neither.
just can't.
I understand the analogy of it, but
Yeah.
but I don't understand.
about it.
It's just not possible. Like,
Yeah,
God doesn't do that. He just doesn't. Yeah.
But
I
it has to be, if like for Aphraar who wants to cross and this bridge and
Mhm.
go in through these gates, and for any soul that would want to do that, that this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
There's no compromising. Those things all have to be gone. So
Mhm.
that's the way I see God being in that situation, not with physical violence and
Yeah.
sorry, that's just my feeling on
It's just, it seems like such an extreme analogy.
Yeah.
Like, I think most of us would just simply dismiss the story as not true. But Aphraar must have absorbed some of it. Maybe from his earth life, he absorbed some of it. Maybe that was part of the reason he was so anti-religious, because maybe at that time it was pretty hard to say, like we can just say, well, what's loving in the Bible I agree with, and what's not I don't, and be fine with that. But maybe in his time, it's either you believed it or you were an atheist, like you were a non-believer or something wrong with you. So maybe there was no fluidity with that. So he kind of absorbed that as truth more than he thought he did, perhaps. Because I think when he's denied the gate, that's when it came up for him. That, oh yeah, that's what God does. He just is vindictive. He just does these things on a, why can't I go? Like, what do I have to do to get across? Well, he's got this feeling. So I get that he has this feeling about God. But I also feel that his analogy, instead of dismissing the story, he got to a place where he just kind of explained the story in a way that made him feel better about it. Right. Yeah. Which didn't really work for me. Anybody else? Oh, Judith?
I just wanted to add, I was listening to you and I agree with what you said, but this is his injury, isn't it? This is like an injury that he had. So
Yeah.
obviously it's really kind of frightening. I mean, it's a pretty bad one, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what he has to work through. And it's interesting that it's like one of the worst ones that's coming up now, basically.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to suggest that these are the kind of injuries that we probably absorb before we're even 5 years old. Like, these are the kind of injuries that, when your parents take you to church and you just listen to sermons, you're absorbing all this emotion and then you don't even know they exist. So it kind of makes sense that they're coming up now because they're buried deeper and they're absorbed without your knowing. By the time you're 1 years old, you've heard all these lectures and you've got all this emotion, you absorbed them from your parents.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna find a bunch of these ourselves as we go.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Oh, Lisa, did you have your hand up? It's okay. Okay.
All good. I resolved it. I just saw it more as his last remaining doubt about God's goodness, but I didn't think that he felt that God was punishing him from not letting him into the gate, that he was feeling God was vindictive towards him. I didn't read it that way, but maybe I'm not seeing it. And I think it was starting to maybe percolate a little bit. And I was starting to maybe grasp what you were saying.
Yeah. Well, he actually says that the same feelings came up for him, that God was vindictive, stimulated by not being able to just go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. He actually says it. Yeah. Yeah. Which kind of.
So interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, like, that was the big question, the mystery question that we were talking about, is what is it that is his last things to work on?
Yeah. And I think for me, what happened that I found problematic is where he went with it, that God is a cipher and that just made no sense to me. Maybe it does to you, but that's the next question. That God is not the only king who writes his dispatches in cipher, that they may not be understood by his enemies. So this story is him writing in cipher so he can get this message across about the purity you have to have before you can come into heaven. It doesn't make any sense to me. So God, I don't think God's a cipher. I think God's real honest. I don't think he speaks in code, but what do you guys think? Lisa?
Maybe those were just more of Aphraar's unresolved feelings that were coming out, similar to seeing God as vindictive is, and you have this secret thing that you're not going to share with us, and you're going to keep me out. You're going to X me out of the kingdom. Fuck you, God. Like his last rebelliousness was really manifesting itself very strongly right there. Oh, sorry, we're on recording, right? I shouldn't swear. I apologize to those listening. But I was just being real. Yeah, so I kind of feel like maybe he's in such a purified place, he's almost at one with God, so that these feelings of rebelliousness are coming out in intensity right now, are being drawn out of him like the last splinter that feels like a big log in your eye.
Yeah, I kind of felt that when he got to that point, he was kind of like, oh, that's what he was doing. And now that's like, that actually brought him some peace and made him feel better about God, because he go, oh, well, God's a cipher, and that's why this story is the way it is. And then he felt better about the story. So he had to go to a place where God says things in code in order to come to some peace about this doubt he had about God. That's what it felt like to me. That's how I read it. Anybody else? Michaela?
My signal's not very good, so I can't do the video. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'm just responding to your question that you just said then about, do you think God is a cipher? And I do, and I find it really frustrating. And it's one of the emotions that I'm kind of working through now, is that I feel like nothing is obvious. And can't you just tell me what the problem is? And why do I have to work and dig so hard to find out what's actually going on? Yeah, so that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
Further along the chapter, though, Aphraar does mention that he works through the emotion and comes to the conclusion that for those who are, I guess, in a good enough condition, there is no mystery. There is no, like, it seems very obvious.
Oh, okay. But so to him, because he wasn't in good enough condition, it was a mystery? Okay, I must not have read that properly.
Not to him, but that it was a way of protect. I'll see if I can find the passage.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, but we can carry on.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, we're kind of answering the next question at the same time. Is this required for him to speak in code? Is like, why would that be required? And also this question about an enemy of God, like he's comparing gods to kings that have enemies. So who would is there enemies of God? Do you think, again, because he's comparing God to like an earthly king. And he does say, like his is in capital H, so he's talking about God in that sentence, I'm assuming.
I found it. I found the passage. So why did my video disappear? This is getting weird. Let me bring it up. So God is not only the only king who writes his dispatch in cipher that they may not be understood by his enemies. For they who have eyes to see and ears to hear, equipments which are bestowed for loyalty, fidelity, and valor, they are as a lamp to the feet and an unfailing guide. While to the enemy, they are the snares and pitfalls which entice to destruction. So basically, when you develop certain qualities, those various cipher are like are obvious guides, are very
What,
obvious
yeah, what
guides.
before it seemed like a code or a cipher now is obvious. That, so, okay, yeah, I didn't read that like that, but that makes sense. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
But again, he's working through stuff, and as he works through them, then the truth comes to him.
Okay, so that next sentence is what he really, yeah, okay, really thought God was doing. Okay. Okay. Are we ready to move on to the next part? Okay, the Amalekite analogy. The Amalekites were a race which had sprung from the seduction of the sons of God by the daughters of men. So Michael helped me with this because I really wanted to understand what that meant. And we didn't get very far. We didn't get to where I thought we were going to get to. So I don't really know what that means, but it does seem to be an indication of their not niceness. It's one of the problems with these people. Who in their marauding expeditions had entered and remained in the land promised to those over whom Saul had been made king. This would be Canaan, like the land of milk and honey. They had introduced their defilements into a land that was to be holy to Israel's God, and therefore the command, the land must be purified, its atmosphere must be cleansed from the taint of leprosy. The last trace of contagion must be eliminated. The roots of epidemic must be plucked up and destroyed. Not even a breath of contamination must remain within its borders. Do you feel that you too are a contagion and cannot enter heaven as such? Because that's the analogy in that, is that you're too impure to be there and you're going to hurt it if you go in your current condition. Okay, Mila.
So whenever we read in these passages about, the celebration at Aphraar is going to lose the last of his earth influence, I go into a tantrum, not a full tantrum, just simmering, that because I'm still on earth, and I'm saying, are you saying that the life I'm living right now is something you got to cleanse off? Because then I'm going to have to get into get of heaven. So I get a little,
Me too.
kind of like, hey, you're talking about me here. You're talking about my life here. And everything I am and what I'm living is something that is just something to be cleansed off. Is that all it's worth? So it kind of triggers my feeling of low self-worth, and I get a little upset.
Yeah.
Tend to get very upset and get rid of it, but
I just get upset too by being described in such negative terms.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's one thing to be described in a way where, you've had all these things put on you and just, all of that, that's okay. But to have it just feels so negative. It just feels so icky and dirty, and I don't like it at all. Yeah. Lisa?
Yeah, I see it quite differently. I feel like it makes complete sense that every sin that's within me, say right now, which is a lot still, needs to be cleared out, because if I were to go to the celestial spheres right now, I would first of all, I wouldn't be able to withstand the energy of it, but get blasted and die right away. But I just would contaminate the other people. I mean, I would, through my jealousy, my competition, all this stuff, anger, my insecurity, my fear, all of that is not part of what's God's kingdom. And so I don't feel of myself as a sinner or that I'm contaminated. I feel that I'm the pure, okay, there's an unworthy part in me, but more and more I feel like I'm this purifying soul that's growing and uprooting the sins that she's done and others have done to her. And I'm getting to that point where I won't have any defilement within me, and I'll be ready. And I'm so glad God's done it that way. So I feel really respectful and grateful for God's clear drawing the line in the sand around this. It feels really important, and it makes me feel safe. Maybe that's an addiction getting met, but no, I think God, because I was very unsafe in my childhood. So God's laws, the more I learn them, make me feel really excited and safe. They're reliable. You can count on them. They're the same each time. They're consistent. So I'm really excited about this whole thing.
Yeah. I am too. I guess it's the language that I don't like, because the next question is this new birth compared to a new birth. that feels so uplifting compared to, like, I don't really feel like you're talking about you would contaminate other celestials, but I think they can't be contaminated. They're very resilient. I don't think I can harm them. So like, I don't get that part, that I could go to heaven as I am and harm something. I totally understand that I can't live there. That makes sense. I just could not be there comfortably, but I don't think if by accident I should be there for a moment, I don't think anybody would be harmed. I think heaven is unbreakable. I don't think you could contaminate it or cause a virus or an epidemic, or I don't, just feels like it'd be more solid to me than that, you know? Any comments on that? Oh, Michael.
Just a quick one. I know Jesus says that the spheres are separated from each other and you have to be in a better condition to go. And I kind of, to me, that's like a universal truth. I could take it personally because I'm not good enough to be someplace else, but I don't feel judged or criticized. I just know, well, I can't go there. You know, I've got too much sin yet, but I think I'm happy with the sin I have, so to speak. And I don't feel judged anyway for being the way I am.
Yeah, I guess that's what I feel about those strong words like contagion. It feels like judgment to me.
I find that if I let myself feel about it, it triggers a feeling of low self-worth. So that
Me too.
Yeah, it's not like
contagion makes us feel unworthy.
But that tantrum helped to trigger the feelings, and then you're like, oh, found it, low self-worth, yay.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like it actually brings up feelings of anger for me to be described in that way. So that's something I need to feel through. I don't like it. Like, I love the whole, you know, you're like a caterpillar that becomes a cocoon and gets all mushy and weird inside for a while, and while you're getting rid of all your stuff, and then you come out and now you can live in the air, and before you couldn't. I like that one. The new bird. I like that. Yeah.
Should we move on to the next?
Yes, let's go on. We seem to have hit a wall on that one. The earthly Canaan was the antitype of the heavenly, hence the drastic command given by the unimpeachable wisdom of the king. There shall in no wise enter into it anything that is capable of producing or tempting to defilement. So does this help you with your doubts about God? Did anybody find that this helped them feel some doubts about God that they needed to feel through? In the same way it helped Aphraar?
Well, I was thinking, like, okay, so if I can put down my tantrum for a second, can I give this a break? What does it look like? I was thinking, like, well, God feels that we have so much worth that only the best is good enough for us in our forever existence. That God is being picky about how our soul condition, because of the amount of worth and love God has for us. That God is saying only the best can be good enough for you. So if you have all of these errors inside of you, you know, that's not what I want for you. Mm-hmm. For this other wonderful existence I've created for you. So if you, I guess as I was feeling low self-worth, on the other hand, I could then receive some information about, well, but this is how much you're worth. And because this is how much you're worth, only the best will do.
Yeah. See, I like that. That's real positive. Like that's it feels like a more positive way of describing it.
But that's only because I was willing to go into the unpositive emotions of like, hey, how can you treat me like that? And then I could receive an answer. Well, no, I'm actually treating you like that because you have so much worth. So it's kind of nice that when you let the little stuff come out, then you have room to let something else come in.
Yeah. So Aphraar is really feeling how bad that feels to be kind of seen as vile. Yeah. Okay.
Other comments about that?
Anybody else? Yeah, Michael?
So are you saying that as these strong feelings of Aphraar are coming up that he's writing in the book, he's actually releasing them and getting in a place for more truth to come in?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tantrums.
Yeah.
Do we go on to the
Yeah,
bonus
last questions. Yeah.
bonus question?
Bonus questions? You want to do those? Okay. This story in Aphraar's process with has been challenging for me. It seems logical to me that it would be natural to dismiss this story about God's nature as a fabrication, but Aphraar absorbed this story as truth in his earth life, even though he wasn't a religious man. Advancing to the sixth sphere didn't completely dissolve his uncontrollable, he said, which is interesting, feeling of aversion. Why do you think the feelings he had about God were created by this story?
Well, my theory is that he heard the story in church.
Yeah, we kind of covered that. Yeah, and that's what I thought too. It was just something, and it's interesting, like that it is the worst story in the Bible. So that's the one that really stuck as God being a pretty awful guy. Lisa.
Then, as
Mila.
priests tend to want to talk about how awful we are, and you're going to pick the best story to kind of drive in the lesson. So
yeah. I did a little reading on how pastors deal with that story, and it's hard for them because they are trying to portray God as a loving God within the context of that story without saying that the story is a lie. It makes it really difficult for them. Like it's really a contentious story, more and more so, because more and more churches are leaning more towards just teaching that he's not a wrathful God, and yet still trying to stay within the facts that everything in the Bible is true. Not easy. And Lisa?
Yeah, so my feeling is that somehow, I think Mila alluded to this before, he imbibed it through maybe his parental and ancestral injuries. So he was predispositioned to have this feeling in him about God. So he kind of just went, okay, I'm just going to try to be a moral and loving human being. Forget the fucking, excuse my language, forget the religion, shove it down the toilet.
Yeah.
And because I think he must have also, I think his dad was very dictatorial, very kind of commanding. So there might have been an association with his dislike of his father and God being harsh and punishing. So I feel like it's a bigger injury at play that really, I mean, Jesus has always said our last and most painful emotions are usually almost always about God. Our emotions towards God are the biggest. Our pains with God are the biggest. So here he is coming face to face with his last doubts and angers with God that really come from his childhood injuries and the ancestral lineage probably that was passed down to him.
Yeah. And probably for none of us, having come from maybe or discarding religion quite young, or not really spending our adult life absorbing a lot of religion, really don't have a lot of residual, as much maybe residual stuff about God. It's Aphraar. Maybe
we'll
not.
see when we get to the transition to the gate, Selina, what is in there. It'll be like a magnifying lens on every little speck that's left, and big ones.
Yeah. I remember feeling when I was a child, those ugly stories like the Lamb of God and the bloody stuff and all that. It was like, I just couldn't get past it, even as a kid. Just couldn't say the words even. Would sing in choir and not say the words. Couldn't. It just felt really bad, really wrong and really bad. So, but I think we do live in a culture where you can just say, well, I can discard that and still believe in God. Yeah. So anybody know what they think, can guess what their feelings might be when they get to the gate that are going to stop them from crossing that bridge? Anybody got any ideas? Virginia?
I've had some conflicting beliefs with religion because nuns and priests, because I always went to Catholic schools and I helped in the church and so on. That was my safe place.
Oh.
And I was very lucky to meet some very loving, wonderful people.
Mhm.
But reading the Bible, that was very contradictory for me. Like, there's violence in the Bible. There's a lot of things that don't sound good, and some the way about the way women are spoken about and so on, that just didn't sit with me. And then at home, it was completely the opposite. I really felt judged, and that when good things didn't happen for me was because I wasn't being good enough. God isn't going to let you have those things. You aren't ready to have those things because you aren't good enough yet. You're not doing good enough deeds. You're not, there was always, I always felt like no matter what I did, it was never good enough.
Mhm.
And so letting go of this judgment from God, or that I'm being punished, is really hard for me to let go. I want to work through that, but I don't know if I'm going to live my whole life with it. It is a tough one for me to really.
I think,
get
yeah,
past.
I could agree. From little I know about Catholics, that's really reinforced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of bad feelings about the religion and some of what is being taught.
Mhm.
I don't like the institution
Yeah.
of religion. So I know there's a lot of good people in it, and that helps me have more faith in God's goodness. But I still have these feelings that I'm trying to work through, and it's really difficult.
Mhm.
It's really difficult because when I find things not working out, I'm kind of reverting to that. I'm like, oh, I thought you kind of worked through that. Oh, darn, it's like coming right back again. Like,
Yeah.
that's, what did I not do that was good enough? Like, what am I doing that's wrong? I have to go to that. So, yeah, that may be the thing that I may be standing again at that bridge going,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
here we go.
Here we go. Yeah. Thought I'd done that one. Oops. Yeah. Wow. Judith?
Yeah, I guess for me, the hardest thing is the worth and feeling unworthy, but also the self-judgment. Because it's very hard, like for Aphraar to hear what he's hearing about himself, and he's not judging himself. He's just it's just a fact about himself.
Mhm.
And that's the hardest thing that I have.
Oh, yeah.
It's the self-judgment, unworthy. I don't understand how this works. And then everyone else is better than me type of thing.
Yeah. 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 Unworthiness. I can't believe that I'm pretty sure I'd have to have some arguments about the law of attraction when I got there. It's just too much if it's unfair. Hopefully by then I'll understand it well enough that it won't need to be explained to me again how it is fair and equitable.
I've had a lot of tantrums about law of attraction.
Oh man, yeah. I'm starting to really get some feedback on that, on how it works, but boy, oh boy, I have to do a lot of triggering stuff to do it. Yeah.
Okay, good discussion, everyone.
Yeah.
Last comment.
That's good. I actually feel better about all of this stuff that was bugging me so much now. Like, I really appreciate everybody's comments and their different viewpoints, because it was just really getting to me. Yeah. I bet you I'd spent at least 6 nights awake thinking about it and these questions, and my uneasiness about a lot of it.
Well, you understand my motivation for doing Life Elysian then. That was it.
Yeah.
I don't understand the book. Talk about it.
Initially joining the book club, I was like, yeah, I'm going to really do this and really try to understand it, as best I really try to understand it. But I really didn't think I'd hit up against walls of disagreement in it. And that's quite different than not understanding. I totally understand what he's talking about here. I just couldn't find any agreement with some of it.
Okay.
Yeah.